What terrifying event is happening in the world right now that most people are ignoring? Insect numbers are absolutely plummeting. There is about a 2.5% loss in terms of mass per year. Without insects, the food chain will collapse. The effects of this are already starting to be seen.
Oh God! Oh God!
My country is on fire. It was also on fire a month ago, but then it stopped for a few weeks.
This is fine.
Cats dying of bird flu in Poland, mammal-to-mammal transmission confirmed.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
The rise of surveillance capitalism and AI. Privacy is essentially non-existent anymore, and it feels like absolutely no one cares.
Oh my God! Oh jeez! Oh my...
Redditors who accidentally killed someone. How has it impacted your life? A very drunk guy tripped off the sidewalk into 5 o'clock traffic, right in front of me. He was limp enough that when I hit him with my SUV, he wrapped up on my back right tire. I stopped the SUV, got out, and found him wrapped up like a burrito. So many broken bones, blood everywhere, but his head was resting at 10 o'clock on the tire. Was in the process of reaching to touch him, just a few inches away, and I saw him breathe. I started crying, went up to the sidewalk and went into shock. After cops came by, took the report, and I was taken back to my app from a friend. Spent that weekend at their place, and they drove the SUV to my app beforehand. But it took over a week for me to be able to drive the SUV again. 2 weeks later, was told the vehicle was a crime scene, so cops took it for another day, but deemed it not needed. Found out the parents were trying to sue me, but due to the 5 witnesses at the location, they vouched for me. The toxicology reading, he was at 0.25 alcohol level at death, and he had Hep C. One of the firefighters caught that when they were removing him due to all the blood, and the parents did know about, most likely due to drugs. So they dropped the case. I will never drive on the sidewalk side of the road, unless it's a one-way, and I still hug towards the interior and tend to swerve if people are on the sidewalk. This occurred 12 years ago. Paramedics of Reddit, what's the most effed up thing you've witnessed while attending an incident? EMT here, not a medic. This one effed me up for a bit and makes me a much more cautious driver. Some teenagers with Mustangs decided to race each other down the highway at 1 a.m. End up losing control at insane speeds and initially bumping each other, sending the car in the right lane off into the trees. Driver somehow survived and was medevaced out in critical condition. Car in the left lane went over the guardrail median and head first into a Jeep, then caught on fire. We got on scene and found the now extinguished, burnt mess of the wreck. Passengers of the Mustang were just carbon stacks. No bodily or facial recognition whatsoever, just charred masses of what used to be people. The driver of the Jeep was severed in half, torso hanging out of the driver's side window, legs still by the pedals and organs everywhere in the seat. The worst part was the driver of the Jeep was just minding his own business, driving along to wherever he was going. All because some kids decided to be idiots. His life was over in a split second. Who are some people who died telling us the truth? Ignaz Semmelweis, the first doctor to implement hand washing in hospitals. It saved millions of lives and is the single greatest innovation in medicine. For his radical theory that doctors were killing patients by not washing their hands, he was shunned from the medical profession by his peers. The rejection and failure to adopt hand washing drove him mad. His rival took his job and had him sent to the asylum. He died 4 days after being committed, from injuries he sustained from being beaten in the ward. Years after his death, his theories about hand washing were proven correct. Today he's known as the savior of mothers because he first proved hand washing saved lives by implementing it in the birthing ward, where 1 in 4 women died at the hospital during birth. This was because doctors would handle cadavers and then immediately attend to birthing mothers, infecting them. After hand washing was implemented, the rate of death for birthing mothers dropped to less than 5%. Murder attempt survivors. What happened? My mom was incredibly abusive. On one occasion, I was around 12 and she came into my room while I was sleeping and stabbed me in the chest with a kitchen knife, puncturing my lung. I didn't know this at the time. Obviously this woke me up and I just rolled out of bed and ran around the house screaming. Someone on our road noticed the noise and called the police. Just before the police arrived, she started choking me and I lost consciousness. I later woke up in the hospital and, mostly, recovered. She's now in jail. This is not the only time that she tried, but it was the most dramatic and came the closest to actually killing me. He had some pretty severe mental health issues. She had schizoaffective. As do I. She thought that she was working with God and that me, her first child, would basically be the second coming of Jesus or whatever. When I was born, it was clear that I was severely disabled and she decided that God had made a mistake and she had to fix it, either by curing me, not going to work lol, but she tried, or by killing me, which obviously didn't work either lmao. Outside of her delusions, she was pretty smart, and a lot of her abuse was very well covered up, so I don't know how much was just mental illness and how much was something else. She was also abused as a kid, so I guess she didn't really know anything else. What's the worst possible reply to "I'm pregnant"? When my wife became pregnant with our second child, she told our son, who was just under 3 at the time, that mommy had a baby growing in her belly. His response, "Oops. You have the wrong number." Got a random call from a woman once who, while crying, told me she was pregnant. I awkwardly told her she had the wrong number, and she hung up.
Who are you?
I once told an acquaintance I was going to have a second child and she seriously asked human. Different scenario, but a coworker of mine a while ago was smoking on her break, and a lady came up to her and said that's bad for the baby. My coworker replied, "It's alright, I'm not keeping it anyway." She wasn't pregnant.
Yikes!
People who've been kidnapped, how did you survive? I got very, very lucky. The 2 men who kidnapped me from a bus stop, I was 16, had clearly done so with others before. They'd removed the door handles from the back seat doors, so when I tried to make my way out at a red light I couldn't get the door open. I'm pretty sure they intended to kill me after they wrapped me. They drove me to an abandoned gas station and began assaulting me, but about an hour into the experience a police car drove up to check out what was happening. The man in the back seat with me at that time threatened to slit my throat if I screamed, while his partner got out and convinced the cop that I was his niece. And that he and my dad brought me out to talk to me. He said they needed to set me straight because I'd been acting out. The cop insisted they leave the station right then, and he followed our car back to the highway. They got so worried he'd remember them if my body turned up the next day that they decided to release me right then. I got thrown down a gravel embankment along the highway, and ran in the dark to a nearby open restaurant. I will never forget lying there in the wet grass after coming to rest at the bottom of the embankment, gazing up at a sky filled with stars, and realizing that, holy shit, I was somehow still alive. Injured and anguished and violated and sorrowful. But alive and able to find a way through the trauma.